Welcome to an uplifting dialogue, stories about how the arts powerfully transform life with Susan Brender. This is V for Vitality.
This show has been made possible by the support of Plantronics, an endpoint company celebrating 50 years of innovation. I'm Susan Brender, and this is V for Vitality.
I'm Susan Brender. Last week I talked to Murray and Peggy Schwartz, the authors of The Dance Claim Me, a biography of Pearl Primus, 20th century dance pioneer. In part 2 of my interview with the Schwartzes, we explore other sides of Pearl which help to better understand this incredible person. So continuing here on part 2 is the Schwartzes interview.
I think that she was in her spirit, she had this connection, of course, to Trinidad. She was born in Trinidad, and various other different aspects of her ancestry, probably there was a connection. Do you kind of see any connection as a result?
Oh, there definitely was a connection to the dances that had originated in Africa and become part of the ritual practice in the hills of Trinidad. She went back to Trinidad in the early 50s, and she studied these dances, both as a dancer and an anthropologist, and she brought these dances into her repertoire, and so that her dancing then became Caribbean, African, modern, all at once. And that was her general project, to retrieve the authentic dances of the hills, the villages, the tribal dances, and to transpose them for audiences both in Africa and in America so that they could be recognized in their authenticity, not exploited for stage purposes.
So that leads me to the idea that many of her dances were called primitives, and they came before, am I correct in assuming this, they came before her experience in Africa?
Mm-hmm. Right. In her the early programs, she would have the dances grouped in different categories, and she would always have a category called primitive. After she studied in Africa, she said, I will never again use that word primitive.
Why?
Because there's something demeaning. There's something as though it's undeveloped, as though it's lesser than the Western tradition, the African tradition, and she saw and experienced the fullest meaning, the revelation of the fullest meaning, which and the integration of movement and rhythm and body expression and costume and mask and environment. There was nothing primitive about it. It was highly sophisticated, or I think even take out the word sophisticated. It was complete and full expression. So there was nothing primitive about the work. And once she had that experience, that revelation, that word was one that she didn't use again. And in college campuses, actually, when I started teaching at college, we used to offer courses that were called primitive dance, and that became a huge, huge issue, and what to then rename courses that were not Western modern dance or ballet, how to refer to classes that were based in other ethnic or world dance forms. So dismissing the word primitive as early as she did, as with many other things, she was way ahead of the academic and the cultural world in terms of trying to advance understanding of how to even think about and speak about the cultural expression of cultures that were other than Western cultures.
So let's move on to Africa for the moment and talk about how Africa influenced her dance and her life.
Well, when she went to Africa, she was on her own, a young woman who, she had her knife, but she had no other means of protection, and she made her way through many of the countries and tribes of West Africa, and everywhere she went, she was recognized as someone who seemed to know before she was taught what these dances were about. She was given the name Omowale, which means child returned home, and she was taught dances that only men were allowed to learn, for which she was declared an honorary man, so that she could come to embody all these dances herself. And this happened wherever she went. She went to many, many places, and she was received as someone who had, sort of been sent to learn these dances.
I would like to just add a little bit more that she was considered an ancestral spirit returned home, and there were dances that she performed in these villages that had come to her in dreams, and they were the dances of these particular villages.
Very interesting. So I'm curious to understand, because Africa, women, depending upon, of course, where and what tribes, but for the most part, you would never get a woman to be accepted by a man and to be called a man and dance their dances. That was very, very sort of wrong. Am I right in saying that? Wrong? What would be the right word to use for that?
I don't know that I would use the word wrong, but it certainly was a highly unusual, but she was so well known, she became so well known that as she would be going from one village to the next, the talking drums would signal, Little Fast Feet is on the way. That was another one of the names, Little Fast Feet. Little Fast Feet is on the way. So she was singular in how she was accepted from village to village, from tribe to tribe.
Now, how do you account for the fact that we, in the intro, as you heard, I talk about Isadora Duncan and I talk about Martha Graham, but I don't talk about Pearl Primus much because I actually don't know a lot, but now I do since I've read your book. But the question becomes, how do you account for the fact that she has not been a name personally, in at least in this period?
Well, I think part of the answer is that she never founded a specific technique, which you might call the Graham technique or the Duncan technique.
Murray, nope. She did have a technique. She never founded a school that lasted.
Right. That's what I mean. I mean a technique that you would go to a particular school to learn. Instead, she transmitted her dances very carefully to other people and was quite reluctant to transmit some of the most powerful dances until she was pretty late in her life. Instead, her influence more and more took the form of education, and she did an enormous amount of teaching in schools, especially in New York, but in many other places as well. And she developed what she called a lecture demonstration, in which she would put the dances in the context of their cultural origins. So it was not the usual stage performance, and it was reaching different audiences than the stage in major cities usually reached.
I would add to that she also spent very important years in Africa when she wasn't in the States building a performance career and following. And the people who did follow her would wonder, where's Primus? Where's Primus? And then she would reemerge from Liberia or wherever she had been working. She was up and back quite regularly. Her interests and her talents and her abilities were so diverse. I mean, she was a PhD in anthropology, in dance and anthropology, before there was a field of dance anthropology. So she wasn't only pursuing the New York high-profile performance career. And this goes back to what Murray's discussion a little bit earlier about authenticity. I mean, as she went deeper and deeper into her materials, it took her out of the performance world for additional studies.
So she was a scholar, is what you're saying. Besides being a dancer and a lover of her movement and projecting so much beauty into the world, which was first, the scholarly side of her or the dance side of her?
Well, actually, they're there from very early on. Before or almost the same time that she began dancing, she was writing. She wrote a lot of poetry, some of which we could use in the biography. She wrote poetry. She wrote very eloquent prose. She wrote many, many scholarly proposals for an institute or school, so that writing and scholarship were always woven into her sense of her mission and were part of her actual performance in the lecture part of her dancing.
How is this now being used? Do we hear about Primus in colleges or universities around the country? Is some of her dance, Peggy, being followed or used or exemplified in some ways?
Well, yes, it is, and I can proudly say, actually, that I've not been the only person, but there have been a few of us who've been very influential in bringing back her work into the performance world, onto the stage, into colleges and other venues. Several years back, I worked through a very large grant to the 5 College Dance Department when I was chair of that department. Brought Jawole Willett Jozaler, who's the artistic director and founder of Urban Bushwoman, to Amherst to create a new work that would enfold one of Primus's works. We took the work Bouchache, which is war dance, a dance of peace. The warriors stir up the forces of evil so that they can defeat them. I was able to restage that short work, a 4.5-minute study, and then Jawole created a new work which enfolded it. It was stunning. She then reworked that piece and set it on her company, Urban Bushwomen, and it was performed at Jacob's Pillow. So I was so moved to feel like finally she's back, not just on the college campus stage, but she's back in the professional world. Zahler then created another work, two works, the African Diaries and the Southern Diaries. She's won a Bessie Award for them, which is the highest award you can win in dance for performance and choreography. And those works have been performed all over the country and internationally. There's an institute called the American Dance Legacy Institute, which has created a study from Bouchache, which has and set it in such a way that it is now available for every level of education, from kindergarten through college performance. The solos, Kim Bears-Bailey from Philadanco Dance Company and University of the Arts has been restaging 3 of the solos where she feels she has strong enough dancers, and not just in the technical ability, but the emotional strength and intellectual commitment to take on the meaning of those dances. So those 3 solos have been performed on college campuses. Not too many, but they're starting to be seen. With the publication of the book, Murray and I have presented material to the West Indian community in Brooklyn. We were at Williams College just last weekend, lecturing, bringing the dancers to perform there at Jacob's Pillow. The students performed last summer, and a group called Something Positive. So the work has begun to reemerge, and we've been humbled and very grateful for the reception that the book is getting. There's such gratitude in the African American community and dance community that this great woman's life and work is finally reemerging with the stature that it deserves, and that's been our hope that we could do that, and we're seeing it happen.
Well, that's very, very exciting, and I'd like to end on something which our show is about vitality and how the arts play a role in creating vitality in people. First of all, I'd like to talk about the vitality of both Peggy and Murray. You have been involved in the university world as scholars. You've been involved in the dance world, Peggy. I see that Murray has played a major role in universities and studies. Where does your vitality come from?
I can tell you, mine comes from 2 sources. One is students. It's the most gratifying thing imaginable for me to reach students and have them respond to what I have to teach. The other has to do with my many years as a dean or a provost and administrator, and that has to do with being able to build programs that have some lasting value. That is to say, to create courses, to hire faculty, to design programs that can reach contemporary students. Those 2 things have been energizing for my whole career.
And what about you, Peggy? And tell me about
Well, the reason I giggled is because the first response that went through my head was, where does my vitality come from? My mother.
Why not?
Why not? It's just a blessing and a gift. I mean, to wake up in the morning with energy for the day and enthusiasm for what I'm engaged in, it's a blessing. I mean, the word, I think it's there or it's not. There's a zest and a zeal and a curiosity and discipline. There's discipline and staying power. And, I agree with Murray, students feed it or have fed it to colleagues. And to have had the career that I've had, which has taken me through so many parts of education from preschool through higher education and through the dance world in so many ways. It's just been gift after gift. I'm very grateful, and it's fed itself. I've been very nourished by it.
Yes, and what about Pearl? Because
her vitality?
Yes.
I think she too was born with it. I think that the gifts that she came into the world with were recognized very early, and right through to being able to be accepted at Hunter College High School as one of two black girls in that school.
I think what ties the three of us together, Peggy, me, and Pearl, has a lot to do with the traditions in which we were raised. The Trinidadian family that Pearl grew up with had a set of values that were very close to ours. They valued education, they valued self-expression, they valued individual freedom. They had a kind of cosmopolitan consciousness that transcended narrow categories of race and religion, ethnicity. So it's that sense that I think, is vitalizing, energizing. And, I actually think it's growing in the world, and that Pearl made an important contribution to it.
Well, Peggy and Murray Schwartz, you've taken a great, complicated life and legacy of Pearl Primus and have really done what we talked about at the beginning of the show, which has given us a way to learn and to understand Pearl's life journey. I'd love to know more about Pearl, and I think the best way for both myself and our audience is to read the book, The Dance Claim Me, a biography of Pearl Primus, written by Peggy and Murray Schwartz. And for all our audience, I just want you to finish on one note for us. Peggy, can anybody dance?
Oh, absolutely. There's the African saying, if you can walk, you can dance. If you talk, you can sing. And I was living and breathing and believing that before I ever heard the saying, so that's another connection. And that has to do with the traditions that I grew up with, the Dalcroze tradition of dance training, music and movement training, which is to take the personal expression and find form. So, yes, I think we all have in us the dancer, the singer, the actor, the artist.
Thank you very much, Peggy and Murray, for being on V for Vitality. We look forward to another show, maybe another book on somebody else who we should learn more about. Thank you again, and have a great day.
Thank you.
This is Susan Brender, and this has been V for Vitality.
Cool off with the delicious treat at FY&I Frozen Yogurt and Ice Cream Shop in beautiful Delray Beach, Florida. FY&I offers more than 20 flavors of ice cream, frozen yogurt, Italian gelato, sorbet, protein shakes, and more. FY&I also caters birthday parties or any special occasion. Enjoy these wonderful treats in our cool, breezy, kid-friendly cafe. That looks good. Can Mommy have a taste?
They're mine.
Oh well. You can receive a free small cone of frozen yogurt or ice cream if you say the magic words, Susan sent you. Don't forget to pick up a coupon for $1 off your next purchase. They're located at 9 Northeast 2nd Avenue in Pineapple Grove, Delray Beach, Florida. They're open 7 days a week. For store hours or more information, call 561-450-7402. This commercial brought to you by FY&I Frozen Yogurt and Ice Cream Shop and the Susan Brender Show. See you there.